More than ever, we need to focus on stories of strength, courage, and unity. Welcome to COVID Talks, a series dedicated to promoting positive conversations during uncertain times.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's edition of COVID Talks, Positive Conversations During Uncertain Times. My name is Anthony Rapp of PR Cision LLC. I'll be your host for the evening. So first and foremost, thank you, everyone, for tuning in and watching us live. If you're listening to us via the podcast, we appreciate it. Thank you for downloading it. Today is a dual purpose. So today is Cinco de Mayo, so happy Cinco de Mayo. But today is also another day, another special day. The National Giving Foundation traditionally hosts a day called Giving Tuesday once a year, and it's a way for awareness to be brought to nonprofits worldwide. And it's a day of nonprofits asking for donations to support their various programs. So because of the coronavirus and the outbreak we're going through right now, what the organization has done is created a new day, Giving Tuesday Now, which is today. So tonight we're happy to have with us the CEO of Meals on Wheels of Staten Island, Mr. Joe Tornello. He's going to be talking about what the organization is currently doing, how they've adapted to the coronavirus, and what they plan to do in the future. So just so you know, the organization is a Staten Island organization, and it serves over 750 meals per year, and they average about 1,400 seniors a day that they're feeding. So these are astronomical numbers. So we're looking forward to having Joe with us, and we're thankful that he's here with us tonight. But we're going to go to our positive news headlines of the day before we go any further. So first up, we want to congratulate Francis Abbracciamento of Queens, New York. So Francis had been stricken with the coronavirus in early April at the age of 106. She was determined to beat the virus, and we're happy to report that she came out of the hospital healthy, well, beat the coronavirus, and celebrated her 107th birthday this week. So God bless you, Francis. God bless your family. Great news coming out of a otherwise somewhat dark situation. And once again, as I mentioned earlier, so today is Giving Tuesday Now. It's the first Giving Tuesday Now, specifically designed for COVID-19 relief. We're going to, well, first and foremost, I encourage you to support any nonprofit that you can. If you have the ability to give and you're in a financial position to give, there are tons of nonprofits out there doing great work, so I encourage you to support them. Tonight, obviously, we're a little biased. I'm going to talk to you about Meals on Wheels and why you should support the great work that they're doing. But again, I'm sure you've seen it all day. You've gotten emails. If you can and you're in a position to do so, please consider donating to a nonprofit today for Giving Tuesday Now. And last up, this weekend is Mother's Day. So local restaurant Giovanni's Trattoria is hosting a virtual wine tasting event. You can visit their website at giovannis.nyc. They have a kit put together that they'll send right to your door and to your mother's door, hand delivered. Everything inside that kit, from a custom wine glass to 3 unique samples of wine. And on Saturday night, 8 p.m., they're going to be hosting a virtual wine tasting live from the restaurant. So we encourage you to support your local businesses, get mom something different for Mother's Day, and make a normal situation out of an otherwise unnormal Mother's Day. And stay in touch with us. How could you find us? Find us on Facebook at COVID Talk. Check out the website at covid-talks.com. That's where you can see all the previous guests and previous episodes, as well as who's new and who's coming. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at COVID Talks. And, of course, download our podcast on iTunes and Spotify. And finally, tomorrow night, Wednesday night at 7 p.m., we are honored to have Linda Barron with us, the president of the Staten Island Chamber of Commerce. It's a COVID Talks exclusive interview. She's going to be giving us a state of the borough, talking about businesses and what the chamber is doing for even non-members of the chamber. The chamber is going above and beyond during these times to really help get business back to normal. We'll talk to her. We'll get her opinions and see what her state and thoughts are of where we go from here and how businesses are going to face reopening and what that's going to look like. All right. So now, without any further ado, we're going to bring up, again, Mr. Joe Tornello, CEO of Meals on Wheels of Staten Island, going to give us sort of a state of what Meals on Wheels has been doing, how they've had to adjust to the current climate. Joe has been featured on Fox numerous times talking about the organization, so it's a privilege to have him here with us tonight. We're going to bring him back up from the green room. And Joe, you're with us. You're live. How are you, sir?
Good, Anthony. How are you doing? Thank you so much, really, for inviting me to participate in this program with you today.
Privileged to have you. We're honored. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. So before we get into, the hard hitting questions,
Okay.
for people who may not be familiar with you, just give us a background of where you started and how your career led you to
Sure.
lead Meals on Wheels.
Sure. Well, I'm a Staten Island guy. I grew up on the North Shore, actually, probably
We love to hear that.
maybe less than a couple of miles away from where I work right now. I'm a Manus Harbor boy. But I suppose after I got out of college, and I wanted to go into human services, into social work, and I've worked on the island with the then Society for Seamen's Children, with children, then and a couple of clinical experiences with South Beach Psychiatric and at Richmond University Hospital, then the St. Vincent's Hospital. That's where I started working with the elderly. I was directing a geriatric outpatient psychiatric clinic and working with elderly people in our community who needed mental health services. And from there to CASC, Community Agency for Senior Citizens, working also in a home health agency with the elderly. And finally, last dozen years now with Meals on Wheels of Staten Island. I consider this the apex of my career, to be able to work with older adults living in my hometown, my home community, Staten Island, people who want to stay living in their own homes where they raise their families, where they've had their careers, and with some support, and in our case, delivery of healthy nutrition, we help them maintain that independence and that sense of integrity living in our communities that have been their home for most of their lives.
So I feel like 90% of the people watching and listening have heard of Meals on Wheels and know what it is. But I think that's kind of where their knowledge ends. So can you kind of explain what the program does, how many people you service, how many meals are delivered?
Of course, this was a grassroots organization that started community leaders in 1972. A couple of years, we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary. But for 48 years, a pilot program out of Seaview in the food service department. Within the first year, Staten Island Hospital, the old Doctors Hospital, Richmond Memorial Hospital, were all doing food for the program. So what's significant about that to this day today is that since our roots came out of a nursing home and hospital settings, right from the beginning, we were able to provide meals that were appropriate and responsive to people's dietary requirements. So many of our recipients have diabetes and need an ADA diet, the American Diabetic Association diet, or have renal disease, have kidney disease, and they need a renal diet, allergies, people who have diverticulosis and have special diets, maybe people who have what's not fully understood is dental challenges in aging, number of people who need a pureed diet or a chopped meal. So our history has brought us to the present where our census has grown over the years. Anthony made reference to how many people we've served out. The overall number of people we served last year was over 1,800. Of course, averaging out per day, it's probably closer to 1,300 people. In more recent times, in more recent months, I should say, over the past 7 weeks, we've actually increased our census by 192 people. We have 2 registered nurses on staff who get to interview everybody. In normal circumstances, they do a home visit. But since this illness has been brought to bear in our community, they'll do an interview over the phone to confirm the need that a person has for our service and to get meals started. Many of the 192 people that we've added have been added because of the coronavirus and for one reason or another need to be home and need to have meals delivered to them.
So give me a way that you've adjusted. So just to distill that. So you're serving an amazing amount of meals to homebound seniors in need here on Staten Island every day until now. So every day you are out there, you're comprised of volunteers as well as workers. But how have you adjusted since the coronavirus as far as daily deliveries?
Thank you for asking the question that way, because we've had to make an adjustment. I mean, I mentioned how we started with those clinical roots, but the other thing is we started out from the beginning doing 2 meals a day, a hot meal and a cold meal, both meeting the 1/3 recommended dietary requirement and the city approved, by the way, our menu cycles. Very unique. The Older Americans Act, which funds Meals on Wheels programs throughout the country, only requires 1 meal a day. But our original board of directors way back then put in our articles of incorporation 2 meals a day. We've maintained that. However, with this virus, that's been a painful adjustment that we've had to make. When our kitchen is in full operation, preparing those 2 meals, we have maybe 30, 40 people elbow to elbow in the kitchen, between the kitchen staff, the staff drivers, at the ovens, in the kettles, plating the meals, all on top of each other. It was too hazardous for our staff to be that close for all of those hours. The Department for the Aging, which is our primary funder, worked out an arrangement for us to start delivering frozen meals once a week. Or actually, on Mondays, we're sending out 5 frozen meals that are provided through a city-identified provider. It's not what we're used to doing, but it's an adjustment that we've had to make for 2 reasons. One is for the safety of our staff. And for all of these weeks, since since we've experienced the impact of the coronavirus, thank God we've had a healthy staff. The other thing is going to seniors' homes every day also could have created a hazard. Somebody going to their door 5 days a week to deliver meals. So at this point, we deliver once on Mondays. On Fridays, we deliver to people who get weekend meals. A number of our people have no support on the weekends, and so there may be just 2 visits a week. We take a lot of precautions. All of our staff must wear masks. Everybody arriving in the building, we only use one door, has to have their temperature taken. They're asked about if they have any symptoms. Any negative information there, they get sent home. That includes vendors and volunteers. When we deliver, the deliverer, whether it's our staff driver or a volunteer, knock on the door or ring the bell, put the food on the door handle, step back 6 to 10 feet, wait for the recipient to receive the food, and then affirm that they're well, that they've been okay, and that they don't need help with anything. If the occasion arises where somebody says, I don't feel well, we put into motion contact with their emergency contact. It could be an adult child, adult daughter, adult son, and let them know. I'm mentioning volunteers, Anthony, and you mentioned volunteers as well. We have been blessed by volunteers over the years. Over 75% of our meals are delivered by volunteers during the course of normal course of business. We have 48 volunteer routes every day. And what makes it work, and anybody out there who wants to think about volunteering in the future, is that each route has a volunteer for each day of the week. So, and most of our volunteers are retired people themselves, older adults who are driving, are healthy, and find one day a week they can devote an hour, hour and a half to delivering meals. And so it's not like a job. It's being able to help their frail neighbors. I often refer to my argument with the volunteer. It's like I say, thank you so much for what you do. And invariably, and I'm not exaggerating, 99% of the time the volunteer will say, no, I thank you for letting me do this. And then I say, no, I thank you more. But in any case, that's our experience with volunteers. And during this crisis, so many people have come forward and say, can we volunteer to help deliver food? We do not have a shortage of volunteers.
I want to interrupt you just for 1 second, Joe, because we do have a nice video we want to just show of what it's like to be a volunteer.
Well, I love to give back to the community. It's a great thing to do. You know, there's always people needing help. So I'm ready to go in that. That's my specialty. I've been a volunteer for Meals on Wheels about 2 years and a half. Being a volunteer.
And in addition to seeing the great work of the volunteer, you can actually see your kitchen, your facility, the way the meals are packaged, the way it's working. It's like a well-oiled machine.
See those labels going on, it's individually labeled. And if anybody has a special diet, that it identifies the special diet information. You know, we're very proud of the fact also that we partner with 21 organizations that serve people with special needs, developmental disabilities. They help us, their staff and their consumers help deliver a lot of meals. And they also help in our kitchen. And over the years, we've hired 5 of those individuals as staff members and working in our kitchen.
That's great.
Wonderful workers and wonderful assets to our organization.
And now this individual, as you can see, they're using their own vehicles, right? So if someone wants to volunteer, they can bring their own vehicle, drive around.
Now he's standing in front of one of our trucks. These are hotshot trucks. You'll see in the back, there are 2 compartments. One's a refrigerator. The other is a warmer unit, so that we pack the cold meals in the refrigeration and the hot meals go into the warmer. And 3 of those trucks go out to remote locations. We can't have a Tottenville volunteer coming all the way up to Port Richmond to pick up 10 meals. Right. We bring the food out to them in our hotshot trucks. They load their meals in a insulated bag and deliver them. I also need 2 of our vehicles also go out to our kosher meal subcontractor who does kosher and halal meals for the island, and wonderful partnership we have there.
So you mentioned volunteers, and then there was something else you mentioned that I want to touch on.
Sure.
So another thing that people, I mean, again, I think the general population has heard of Meals on Wheels, but one of the things I think gets overlooked is the fact that we're dealing with homebound seniors who aren't able to get out.
Oh,
So
yeah.
can you tell me about, because I always like to say that it's more than delivering meals, it's delivering hope, because there are examples of people who don't see anyone outside of your workers or your volunteers. So speak to that a little bit. I mean, it's more than meals. It's a lifeline.
Thank you for you shouldn't have to remind me about that, because whenever I talk about Meals on Wheels, I always say that personal face-to-face contact is just as important as the food we deliver. We go through our whole lives social beings. We're with people. It's hard to be older and in your home and alone. And sadly, and I say this with sadness, many of the intakes that our nurses do, there are occasions, not that unusual, when they ask for an emergency contact and the person cannot identify someone to call if they have an emergency. It's a sad fact, a sad reality. A term that's been floating around that I've read in some articles are elder orphans. We have some of those people right here in our borough alone. And so that day-to-day contact, not only is it for delivering the food and the appreciation that they have food, but it's just knowing that somebody sees me every day. There's a sense of security. There's a reduction in a sense of isolation. We very much recognize that. A lot of our volunteers and our staff drivers do extra little things, bring my garbage can in from the street, or could you change a light bulb for me, or do little chores just to help out. Those little things mean a lot. And it's so important, that face-to-face contact. And the other outcome of that regular delivery is that if the person doesn't look well, again, the eligibility for home delivered meals is over age 60, and the person being unable to cook for themselves or shop for themselves. So we're talking about a basic level of frailty, disability, and the average age of 84. So many of our recipients are over age 90. We have 10 people over 100. We love the fact that we serve a lot of veterans. We have a couple of World War II veterans that we're serving. But the deliverer who knows the recipient may see that things don't look right. A person normally comes to the door alert and dressed, may come to the door seemingly a little confused, maybe still in pajamas. And that will mobilize a phone call, an emergency response for our nurse. Maybe it's to call that emergency contact person, if there is one. Most often there is, of course, the daughter or son. If nobody answers the door and the meal has not been canceled, that also mobilizes a response on our part. And it could be that the person didn't hear the doorbell. The deliverer's there, calls the office. No one answered the door. We call on the phone, person answers the phone, says, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the bell. Sometimes no one answers the door. We tell the deliverer to continue to deliver meals. We call the emergency contact person. Sometimes, say it's the daughter who says, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to call and cancel for today. Mom's with me. But sometimes that emergency contact says, no, my mother should have answered the door. I'm going to go straight there. We may send our nurse out there. We may find a person on the floor. We have saved lives. And I'm not just saying that to be dramatic. Over the years, we've saved lives because we've been able to have that ability to intervene. And so that a person is not laying on the floor for hours or days. We're there to intervene if there's a need to help. That's the negative side. But the lighter side is we see it's that positive interaction day to day. How you doing? And I know, actually, my brother's a volunteer, and he says that when his grandchildren are out of school and he brings them with him, that seniors love to see these two little kids come with him. They adore the little ones, and little things like that mean a lot.
Yeah, so it's more than food. It's nutrition, but it's also an overall sense of well-being. So before I get into asking you how the public can support you guys financially and what you need, I'm going to pull a stat straight from your website, because it's just to think that it's Staten Island and it's Staten Island specific. So in the year 2000, according to statistics on the site, nearly 12% of Staten Island's population was considered elderly, which would be the population you would serve. And now, according to the census survey, in the year 2030, nearly 19% of Staten Island's population is going to be considered elderly, and it's going to be the highest in the city. So An organization like yours, and I'm gonna get to why we need to support you financially, but how do you even prepare for something like that when right now you're delivering 750,000 meals a year, and now we're saying that census data is saying that may double? How
You
do you?
know, I'm sorry, Anthony. Yeah, how do we deal with that? How have we been dealing with that? Let me point out that the statistic that I used that came out of New York City planning is that the older adult population of Staten Island between the year 2000 and 2030 would double and increase by 100%. We do have an aging borough, and we still have people who are moving into this borough from the other boroughs. But how have we dealt with that? The kitchen that we're in. I mentioned in those early years we grew out of food service departments in a nursing home and hospitals, but we built our own kitchen back in year 2001, 2002, and back then our intention was that the new kitchen was going to be able to manage a census of up to 500 to 600 people. Our daily census, as you pointed out now, is like 1,200 or more, and double. What we've done over the years is we've added freezers, added refrigeration. We moved the cook out of the kitchen and put him where we have storage so that we can add more refrigerators. Where before the coronavirus happened, we were planning to add another freezer and refrigerator in some other space. But what all of this mobilized within the past several years is the building of a new facility. We've been through several years now of planning, of doing our own fundraising for the new building, which interestingly will be on the campus of Seaview. We'll have a 10,000 square foot kitchen and eventually move all of our offices to that site as well. And I like to talk about how that kitchen is going to not only address our census now, but address what we're projecting to be the growing census over the next couple of decades. The baby boomers are considered 1946 to 1964. Our average age right now is 84. The first year of the baby boomers, those 1946 babies, are going to reach our average age in 2030. So we want to be ready for that through the 40s. And I love to tell my two millennial daughters that we will be ready for the millennials in 2060. So that new kitchen is going to address the needs now and into the future. And the building we're in Port Richmond, I see a lot of other value that's going to bring to the community in preparing food for our older adult population, and also in emergencies such as we're having now. It could have a major role in emergency response with food.
So even in the midst of what is a terrible situation for the entire world, you're talking about positive things like growth, expansion, being able to compete with and service a census that is going to double. So there is positive stuff coming out of an unfortunate circumstance. So how can people watching, listening, how can they help support? So on the bottom, I have the text, so they can donate by text to the organization. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Anthony, for doing that. Yeah, it's down there. You can text. We've got a great website and a Facebook page. Thanks to Anthony, by the way, he's helped us really develop that. Brought us into this century with a more usable, more user-friendly webpage, I should say. So that's another site, which you'll also get to look. You'll be able to see a few more things about our program than we have time to discuss today. So
what I'm going to do is I'm going to post a link. So today again is Giving Tuesday, and we encourage everyone watching, listening. Please, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but a $10 donation is a $30 donation. I'm sorry, a $30 donation is enough to provide 10 meals. Is that correct?
Yeah, that'll be sure.
So if you are in a financial position that you have the money and you're able to give, think about what you would do in your daily life for $30. The average person, that's probably you're waking up, you're getting a coffee and a bagel in the morning, you're stopping on the way home to get a quick iced coffee at Dunkin' on the way home, and that's like $20 right there. So for $30 donation, you can give a senior in need here on Staten Island 10 meals, which is outstanding. So I want to talk a little bit about the business community, Joe. So I know the business community has always been there. And again, with today being Giving Tuesday now, you've partnered with a local Staten Island-based collision shop. So Auto Pro Collision and you have come up with this Drive to End Hunger campaign. So talk about how the businesses have been helping and supporting you, and a little bit about this campaign.
Well, Auto Pro Collision, and I hope they're watching or they'll see this, but thank you so much for for mobilizing this effort to help us with fundraising. And you guys at with that business at AutoPro, you are an example of the business community. We are so fortunate to have over the years a great relationship with our business community. Meals on Wheels, we're a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I think you can have Linda Barron on tomorrow's show. I heard Anthony announce that earlier, which brings us close to the business community, the banking community, which has been tremendous. Northfield Bank in Richmond County, and I could go on. And I'm sorry if I don't mention all, but the businesses from restaurants to all aspects of the business community have been supportive over the years and at present. And this current incentive is so much appreciated. They've helped us more recently. Even businesses have helped us during the coronavirus with the donation of equipment. We needed a forklift for something, and it was donated by an electrician, an electrical firm. We needed a 20-foot container freezer, and it got donated to us. Even the fuel to pay for the generator that was donated. So we have a wonderful community. The business community has been so supportive over the years. The banking community, our local foundations have been wonderful. The Staten Island Foundation, Richmond County Bank Foundation, Northfield Bank Foundation, Investors Bank Foundation have been supportive of us. So
it's a great testament of, and I say this almost nightly on this show, of Staten Island being considered the forgotten borough, but yet when we need something or push comes to shove, fellow Staten Islanders are there, whether it be from a business standpoint, a personal standpoint, any which way, to offer help and offer a lending hand. And from what you're saying, the community has been very, very forthcoming and very helpful towards Meals on Wheels.
If I can be personal now, in the very beginning, I talked about my Staten Island upbringing and my career working on Staten Island. I've had wonderful experiences, some of them that I had mentioned, but I have not experienced anything like at Meals on Wheels, the integration of this organization with the business community that I just described, the foundations, with the educational community. We partner with College of Staten Island nursing program, who has registered nurses getting some experience in geriatric nursing, who help our nurses, with elementary schools and high schools who volunteers, the high school students who get together with us on Veterans Day to honor our veterans of the various wars, to the not-for-profit association, all the other not-for-profits. We're also a member, by the way, of the Staten Island COAD, the Community Organizations Against Disaster. That includes not-for-profits in all areas of homeless services, feeding services, community health action, Project Hospitality, the Jewish Community Center. We're all partnered in not only in service delivery, but also in emergency response. And Meals on Wheels is also part of New York City Emergency Management Food Access Lead Team. We're part of that group that is, we're actually the only Staten Island member on that team with food response, and now we've had to exert that during this emergency. So it's a total integration with the community that and the cultural. I forgot to mention the cultural organizations, etc.
They're all helping. They're all doing great work.
We're all so united to serve our borough. And the Kiwanis Club. How about the South Shore Kiwanis and the other Kiwanis and the Rotaries? The South Shore Kiwanis. These members there, every Thanksgiving. Can you imagine, for the last 18, 20 years, going out with your family on Thanksgiving morning to bring food to our recipients who are going to be alone on Thanksgiving Day? And the same thing happens on Christmas Day. They go out with their families, and their children are seeing something to enhance those holidays, but they're also giving to these people, bringing a meal that they have produced and fun. It's just amazing, just to support. And whenever I talk this way, I think, who am I forgetting? The special needs community, developmental disabilities, working with them. I love our organization. I love that we are Staten Island, and for all of you Staten Islanders out there or non-Staten Islanders, we appreciate your being part of us as well. We're all partners in the care of our community. That's what makes Staten Island so great. So, and guys, Anthony, thank you.
No, but see, that's important. We want to get it out there. We want to get out there that Staten Island is a good place. Staten Island loves its community. It's all about community. So again, in the comment section, we put the link up that you can support that Meals on Wheels and AutoPro Collision's special Giving Tuesday Now campaign. They're launching the campaign today, but the campaign is going to run until the goal of, I believe it's $5,000 they want to raise for you, Joe. They're going to continue to run that campaign until they hit that mark of 5,000. And I'm sure if we hit 5,000, they're going to keep going. But again, that link is in the comment section. You could also text the word meals, MEALS, to the number 313131 from your cell phone to make a donation to this organization that's doing great things. Joe, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. Each night we do what we call the COVID Talks Hero of the Day. So anyone who's watching us live right now, I encourage you to take this time to use the comment section. If you have any questions for Joe, please feel free to leave the comments now, because when we come back from the COVID Talks Hero of the Day, we will get to your questions. We'll have Joe answer them. And of course, it would only be appropriate for our COVID Talks Hero of the Day today on Giving Tuesday now in this crazy world is, of course, Meals on Wheels of Staten Island. So again, just to reiterate everything that Joe said, the organization is amazing. It was started in the 70s. It has grown substantially to a point where right now it's roughly serving about 750,000 meals per year to homebound seniors on Staten Island. It's an amazing program. If you heard earlier, the census data shows that on Staten Island alone, the senior population is going to double by 2030. And if you heard Joe speaking, they're already adjusting and adapting and have plans for a bigger, larger facility to be able to service that increased population. So tonight, again, Giving Tuesday now. If you have the ability to give, we encourage you to please give anything that you can to Meals on Wheels, because again, a $30 donation is going to allow Meals on Wheels to provide a homebound senior in need with 10 meals. That's a lot of value for the dollar, I think. All right, so Joe, what we're going to do now is I'm going to go over to the comment section. We're going to see if we have anything worthwhile to discuss. If we do, we'll bring it up. If we don't, that's okay. First and foremost, we have, Joe, you'll like this. We have, hold on, where is it? We have your board member. Shout out to Mike Bloomfield, board member of Meals on Wheels of Staten Island, always tuning in. And he also has a comment that he made a donation. So thank you, Mike, for your donation and for your service. And of course, for being a board member of such a great organization. Let's see.
Anthony, can I say something about our board? Because they're great.
Please talk about your board. Absolutely.
And I'm not just doing that because the board is my boss, but their board is great. We've had a great board over the years. What a great combination of people, men and women, professionals, either in food service, law, medicine, technology like Mike, and catering. Just a wonderful board who've always pitched in, supporting our events, making things work for us, and giving us the great technical oversight we need, the fiscal oversight, the government, making sure that we're doing the right thing in our work.
So shout out to the entire board, Mark Russo and everybody over there.
I should say as well. Hey, Mark.
And just to highlight, so Joe, you were mentioning the Richmond County Foundation before. So we got Gail Castellano, our good friend from Richmond County Savings Bank. So giving you a shout out, thanking the organization for all you guys do.
Hi, Gail. Wonderful work with Gail, with Richmond County Savings Bank, the foundations, wonderful supporters. Them and the other foundations I mentioned have given us the major part of our fundraising for the new facility that we'll be building.
All right. So you know what? There's no more questions, which is not a bad thing. That's a good thing, Joe. It means you get to take a break. It means we're gonna let you go.
Okay.
But before we leave, if you have a positive story that you could share or something good. So at the end of the show, I ask everyone, we're in the midst of crisis. All you hear is bad news. What's one takeaway? And it could be personal, or it could be from an organizational standpoint. What's one takeaway from this whole situation that is going to positively carry you into the next phase when we reopen and when life is back to whatever normal becomes? You know,
Anthony, I hadn't thought about that question that much in advance and thinking that maybe I'd be asked it, but what sparked it for me when I saw your intro before you brought me on the screen. Positive conversations in the midst of this crisis. Positive conversations. What was the full thing?
Positive conversations during uncertain times.
Uncertain times. And we have drawn a lot of positive out of these uncertain times. And it really gave us an opportunity of feeling how well we were able to respond to a totally unexpected crisis. as I said, we're primarily funded by the Department for the Aging, which has us we've had to develop and annually update our emergency procedures for everything you can imagine: flooding, storms, hurricanes, etc., and electric outages. But we never had one necessarily for a pandemic. And so what came out of it was, so we were able to so quickly, with getting my staff together and the board, to create our continuity of operations protocol, how we were going to deal with this, and how quickly our volunteers, our staff, responded in putting together a plan that not only protected our staff, but protected our recipients. And it made me feel like there's nothing that we can encounter that we won't be able to respond to effectively. And so I'm so proud of the people I work with. I'm so proud of the board. And of course, we love the people we serve. We can't say more anymore, but, and the volunteers are another group that we love. They're coming out, people coming out to volunteer. It brings out the love. It brings out the positives that can come out of a negative, and something we should always keep in mind during our lives.
That was perfect. It was like you scripted it, but I know you didn't, because you said you didn't. So that was great. I'm glad you gave it some thought, because that was a perfect response.
Oh, thank you.
So I want to thank you, Joe, once again for being with us.
No, I thank you more, Anthony.
It's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for taking the time. I'm going to close out the show. I'm going to drop you back in the green room. I'll talk to you in a few minutes. But before we bring you away, once again, text the word meals to 313131. Make a donation to Meals on Wheels. Click the link that we posted in the comments. Shout out to Mike Bloomfield, board member, and I know you made a donation because I saw it come through. But click the link and donate to the Drive to End Hunger campaign. A simple $30 donation will allow Meals on Wheels to provide 10 nutritious meals to a senior in need. And listen, if $30 is too much, because again, these are uncertain times, even $1, $5, anything you take will remain, anything you can give will remain in the Staten Island community. It will remain in the hands of Meals on Wheels, and it will be dispersed to help a senior in need. So Joe, I'll be right with you. Thank you so much for being with us, and I'll see you in a minute. All right, very cool. So, I mean, the work that Meals on Wheels is doing, again, I said this earlier, I think a lot of people have heard the name. People are familiar with the brand, I guess you can call it, but not many people really know what they do. They're serving and delivering meals to people who are our neighbors, right? And let's face it, we're going to get old one day, and we may be in a position where we need people to give to us. So the people that Meals on Wheels is serving are the people who took care of us, their grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles, fathers, mothers. They took care of us when we were younger, and now it's our turn to do something right and help take care of them by helping Meals on Wheels get them the meals that they so desperately need. So before we close out, just want to remind everybody that tomorrow night, we're very excited to have with us Linda Barron, the president of the Staten Island Chamber of Commerce. She'll be on talking about the state of the borough, what's going on, and what we plan for the future. And if you are interested in being a guest with us, or you have a topic you'd like for us to discuss, shoot us an email, info@prcision.com. We'd be very happy to get you on or get your topic discussed. And before we close, I forgot tonight, I want to shout out Vito Canetta. Shout out to Vito, COVID Talks #1 fan. We appreciate you being with us every day, brother. Thank you so much. So with that, I'm going to thank you all for listening. Thank you for tuning in. This was COVID Talks, positive conversations during uncertain times. Have a good night.